it figures 2 days after my neurology appointment, following up on the AVMs, which are arterial venous malformations, which means artery, vein, not put together properly, malformed, because our arteries are the big fat ones that are meant to be high volumes of blood at full force. And our veins are supposed to be itty bitty tiny things that take a low volume of blood, because they're itty bitty and tiny, really slowly. And what happens typically if your veins are formed right, you don't have one of these, or in my case, because of the genetic condition, Osler-Weber-Rendu syndrome, which you can check out more of on my Instagram under the health section. I made 2 videos about it. Maybe it's time I start making more YouTube videos. I don't know. I've thrown a couple things where I rambled too long up on YouTube. But there's typically a capillary bed in between arteries and veins, so that this high pressure, like coming out of a fire engine hose, goes through this network of smaller and smaller vessels until it gets to your itty bitty veins. And that channel helps reduce the pressure so that the vein is getting a lot drip, 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 instead of fire hose directly into this tiny little thin-walled vein. Plus the capillary bed that's supposed to be there blocks debris, air bubbles, blood clots, etc. from bacteria from getting directly into your veins and into your circulation. There's a number of problems that can happen if a big fat artery connects to an itty bitty little vein. In HHT, the typical organs affected are your brain, occasionally the spinal cord, the lungs, the liver, the intestinal tract, and superficially, the mucous membranes, the fingertips, toes, the skin, with tiny little telangiectasia that don't do anything but aesthetically bother you. They're not really a problem. When they're in your body, they become a big problem. So I just met with a neurologist, because the last time I had my scan for HHT, they found 2 in my brain. So I had the option of treating them with open head neurosurgery, or I'm waking up. Open head neurosurgery, or with radiation, because they're in my frontal lobes. Yay, right where I make proper decisions and conscious control of my activities. And I chose the radiation because it was just one treatment should be sufficient to get them. And over 2 years, they shrivel because the radiation, and die. So does all the brain cells surrounding that area. Yay, more brain damage. They already cause brain damage. And if you have a surgery with them, you can have strokes, bacterial infection of the brain, air embolism stroke, broken finger, air embolism stroke, never got it taken care of, got it x-rayed, haven't heard anything back. Blood clots, sepsis, just a bunch of problems from doing surgery with it, which is why I had to get surgery clearance from them, that it was shrunken enough to allow for a surgery with precautions. And I also have one in my lungs again. I've had 2 surgeries in my lungs about 8 years ago. back to back, and it was shunting blood away from my heart, which was causing all sorts of symptoms, which led to a diagnosis of POTS until they happened upon a chest x-ray when I ate some bad clams. Don't eat dollar clams. Bad idea. I had food poisoning and they did a chest x-ray. They did an abdominal x-ray and it caught right at the big aneurysm that was shunting blood from my heart. And when they were doing surgery, they could see other areas in my lower lungs and the other lobe that were just like leaking. The IV and stuff that they needed to put in me to do the surgery, that were just leaking out, but I had been under too long to do it all in one setting. So they waited a couple months and then they did the other ones. And I've been clean for 8 years. And I just had a test 6 months ago. That's how they discovered the ones in my brain. And so what's in my lungs is brand new in 6 months' time, and it's big enough to have surgery on because they have grades like they do with most things. If it's small, they just watch it. It reaches a certain point, all the same risks and more. They're very dangerous to have them in your lungs as having them in your brain. So in 6 months, I had one, and it is big enough to have a surgery on. Yay. Perfect timing, too. Waited 8 years, and then in 6 months, boom. Anyway, I just had my follow-up, and I'm trying to get these clearances for from all these other doctors for my hysterectomy that I'm not looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the whole ordeal being done and over with, and I'm saying, there's nothing. We don't have to do chemo radiation. And it's all good. Then following up with U of M and getting a PET scan and making sure it's all good. And then we move on to my liver, unless my liver tests come back abnormal. And as far as my brain, this is when you do radiation, as opposed to any other types of surgery, radiation, side effects on the brain do not happen initially. Your initial side effects are going to be practically nothing. Maybe a little bit of nausea, you might feel a little bit drowsy, and you're like, But, I felt pretty much nothing after they did it. And then 6 months on, when your brain has been radiated, certain things happen. So in my MRI, it showed edema, which is swelling of brain tissue, edema in the brain, around the area of the AVMs, and they are still clearly visible because we're only 6 months into a 2-year shrinkage, but they're smaller. That shows the radiation is working. She asked me if I was having any side effects, and the side effects typical of a complication would be she described things like uncontrollably falling asleep. And I'm like, I have idiopathic hypersomnia. It's kind of like narcolepsy. It has sleep attacks. Sometimes I sleep for hours uncontrollably. I'm always sleepy. I can't tell. And nausea. I'm already on antiemetic because I keep trying to throw up my medications in the morning. Typically in the morning. Rarely, sometimes later in the day, do I need an antiemetic. But it's been a while since I puked myself, uncontrollably, like Poltergeist movie puked. Aren't you glad you tuned in? But 2 days later, I think I need to give them a call and just let them know, because this is out of my norm even. I got home from work. I found out my accommodations were denied, so I was pretty pissed off. And I wrote a letter to the lady that makes that decision, which I posted on Instagram. We went to my apartment to clean it up, because I've been living with my boyfriend because of my state. He has air condition. I can't do without the air, and I've been needing to be driven to so many specialists. I also can't drive because of the sleep disorder and other conditions. He has the transport, and he's my boyfriend, and he's my best friend. So I'd much rather be here suffering than by myself suffering. And so my landlord did an inspection, and I haven't been home for a while other than to grab things and stuff, and it's getting to be quite the disaster zone over there. And as a landlord has to do inspections just to make sure their apartments are safe. And he texted me and he's like, "Whoa, clean your shit up." Sorry. Yeah, I knew that was coming. We tried to get over there before. We just didn't have time around the doctors. So it is now like a massive heat wave again, as most of the world is well aware of. And it is miserably, abysmally hot. We went over there after work, and it was like 90 degrees in my apartment, and thick with humidity. And my sweet poor boyfriend went in the kitchen and cleaned the counters and did the dishes and started the floors. And I laid directly down on the couch and put my portable fan on my face and drifted off to sleep. And he woke me. It was time to go back home here with him. Soon as we walked in the door, I cranked on the air conditioner, put on the fan, and laid down. I work 3 hours. Like 3 hours. So all I did was get up, suffer with my symptoms, get them under control, get dressed, go to work for 3 hours. I came home dead on my feet. And by the time we got back here, it was only like 5. And I slept until midnight. Didn't pass go, didn't collect $200, just slept till midnight. I woke up at midnight, feeling like I'd slept for like an hour or so. But he was just getting into bed, and I was in so much pain. But that's my typical morning pain because I slept for 8 full hours. And all of a sudden, I'm like just running to the bathroom. It's bad. And I was in cold sweats, felt dizzy, and just vomiting. I had to ask him to get the ondansetron, Zofran, for me because I couldn't. I was shaking, sweating. It was the worst feeling, and puking, and I couldn't even get the package open. The first one I got in, I was too nauseated, even though I got it in my mouth and under my tongue. Not threw up again. And so he had me take another one, even though you're not supposed to take them 6 hours apart from each other, because they could cause heart damage. That was no good. And then I went back and I laid down in pain and extreme nausea. And now it is 6 o'clock in the morning, and I slept for another 6 hours. So that's a marathon 15 hours with a break in between of projectile vomiting and pain. Yay. So the neurologist had told me the symptoms to watch out for at this mile marker in brain radiation is things like vomiting, headaches, didn't have a headache, and uncontrollably sleep that and I was like, well, I sleep a lot anyway, and I uncontrollably fall asleep. How would I know? That was incredible even for me. Usually if I pass out after work, I pass out for a couple hours. I don't often make it a whole morning thing. If I wake up, I force myself to get up. There was no doing that. So I guess we'll see how today goes. But I'm going to do a little Dr. Google and see what the side effects are of brain edema. And it might just be traditional side effects, but if it happens again, I'm going to have to call neurology. They told me if anything comes up, give them a call. and find out. I also have that sign in my MRI that I have the start of hepatic. Hepatic means liver encephalopathy. If your liver is not working right for some reason or another, it's not removing toxins from your body. And those toxins can cause a central nervous system disorder, and part of your central nervous system disorder is your brain. It causes swelling in your brain, which can kill you. But first, it makes you disoriented, confused, psychotic like, eventually dementia like. And yeah, so I have some reasons to pay attention to this, even though it's typical of me in a way. It's exaggerated. Um, so if you have a chronic illness, we tend not to go to the doctor or call the doctor because so much of our stuff is so weird or so extreme anyway that we don't know where you draw the line. If it's new, maybe then we'll bring it up like later at a doctor's appointment when somebody else would have called 911. We're so used to bypassing symptoms, and now these are other issues happening on top of my traditional issues. So bear in mind when something is exaggerated, even if it's within your norm, excessive sleep, vomiting, etc. If it's uncharacteristically extreme and lasting, definitely consider there might be something else going on or side effects. So we'll see how today goes and see whether I call the neurologist back or not. I also don't want to delay my surgeries any farther either.